All right, a lot of your problems are going to want you to include the self-weight of the beam. And the reason they're going to want you to include the self-weight of the beam is that concrete, by its practical nature in construction, is a heavy material. Now, focus on that for a minute because there's a little bit of an oddity to that. Reinforced concrete is usually assumed to have a density of 150 pounds per cubic foot. So if you have a box, 1 by 1 by 1 box, and you fill it with reinforced concrete, most people would say normal weight concrete, 150 pounds per cubic foot. When you build a building made out of concrete, you say, well, that building's a heavy building. Right? That beam's a heavy beam. And you're right. When you build out of steel, and you look at a building frame, you say, oh, steel is much lighter as compared to concrete. And when you're looking at that building frame, you'd be right. But steel actually is much, much more dense than concrete is. Steel has a density of roughly 490 pounds per cubic foot. 1 by 1 by 1 box poured with steel weighs 490 pounds. That's 3 times plus reinforced concrete density. Okay? But the problem with concrete is when we practically use it in construction, we form it, but what type of shapes do we form? Because it's easy for us. Rectangle. Virtually. We can form any shape we want, but rectangles is basically what we form. Footings. What are footings? Rectangles. What are beams? Rectangles. What are slabs? Rectangles. What are, columns? A lot of times are rectangle. We can make circular, of course, but a lot of our stuff is rectangle. Whereas steel, we can roll it. We can roll it to the exact specifications. The flanges can be, 5/8 of an inch thick, and so on and so forth. So steel is the ability to roll steel just ends up, in the final result, making the frame lighter. So we're going to have to include self-weight. You're going to have some problems, and read the problems. Some problems that they say, hey, the self-weight's included. Well, then you don't got to worry about it. The problem might say, hey, I'm giving you the dead load, and the self-weight's included. All right, great. If they don't say anything, they're probably going to want you in concrete to include the self-weight of the beam, just because it's substantial. All right? How you go calculate the self-weight of a beam? It's a real simple formula. Formula is width of the beam times the overall depth of the beam, B times H, divided by 144, times 150 pounds per cubic foot. And all this is your, again, B, the width, and the overall depth are typically going to be in inches. 144 converts that into square feet. So you got square feet times pounds per cubic foot. And what you get as a result of that is a value that's going to be so many pounds per foot. All right? So again, if you're doing homework problems, pay particular attention to the problem statement. You might even go to the beginning of the homework problems, because sometimes in some books we'll put a little statement at the beginning of all the homework saying, hey, self-weight's never included unless specifically stated so. Okay, so they're assuming every problem you do, you got to include it, unless they say, hey, we've already put it in. So if you have to put it in, it's a fairly easy calculation.
Is the beam dimensions are given in feet, do we divide it by 144?
If the beam dimensions were given in feet, you would not divide by 144, but that would be unusual. Okay, the beams, typically, we even look at beam schedules. Even when beams are big, they will list, the width, the depth, and they'll give it to you in inches. So, yeah, the answer is yes, but that would be unusual.
For a slab, would you use cross section?
For a slab, would you do a cross section?
Would you use the B&H for cross section for the slab?
We'll get the slabs a little bit next class, but the width generally that we use in slabs will be 1 foot. And we'll explain why that is, but in slabs, you mean like if the slab was 20 feet long, would you use 20 feet?
Yeah, I mean, would you use the face, like the face value or the cross section?
Cross section. These are of the cross section. All right? Okay, so you got that.